As of now, COVID-19 is moving through the world and the worldwide economy gives off an impression of being falling. This truly is one of those seasons of distress, a period when our lives are overturned and loaded up with vulnerability. This will be a troublesome time, but at the same time it's heading off to the flash of some amazing changes. Number 10. Working from home. Before COVID-19, just 7% of American laborers had the alternative to work from home. That doesn't imply that 7% were telecommuting, it just implies that 93% of Americans were informed that it could never be an option. Today, telecommuting is a need. There are no hard measurements on what number of individuals are working remotely around the globe. However, the organization Cisco has said that, in China, their video conferencing programming has been considering 22 to be as a lot of traffic as it did before the outbreak. The world is occupied with a worldwide work-from-home analysis, and we're going to see direct exactly how supportable it is. Number 9. Universal basic income. A couple of months prior, general fundamental pay appeared to be an unrealistic fantasy. Sending each individual in a nation a month-to-month check, regardless of whether they don't go to work, was beginning to manifest on the battlefield, yet in many nations, it didn't seem like anything we'd perceive whenever soon. But for the following scarcely any months, it will be a reality. The United Kingdom has focused on paying 80% of its laborers' salaries, while Denmark has offered to pay upward to 90%, and even the United States is anticipating sending a $1,200 check to pretty much every grown-up American. None of these plans are actually equivalent to all-inclusive essential pay, yet they're close. They're going to adequately be dry trials on how these arrangements truly influence society. Number 8. Automation. One of the sectors COVID-19 has hit the hardest is manufacturing. Anyone working in a factory is an incredibly tough spot. Working remotely isn't an option when you work with your hands, but for some factories, neither is staying home, but for so-called lights-out factories that are operated entirely by robots, a disease isn't even a problem. Companies that use more automation are already doing better than those that rely on cramming human workers into a tightly packed factory. 10. And companies are starting to notice. Kaja Robotics, for example, has said that they've seen a 25% increase in inquiries in the past 30 days alone. We can expect a lot of manufacturing companies to turn to automation to survive, and a lot of other companies, too. Number 7. Online learning. Schools are closing down in almost every nation that has seen an episode of COVID-19, and that is driving guardians and educators into an entirely different period of education, for the following not many months. Internet learning will be the standard. Regardless of how technically knowledgeable your educator is, they will need to figure out how to make instruction digital, based on early responses. It's far-fetched that we'll see boundless selection of online training when this is finished. Input from instructors, up until this point, has been all around negative. Number 6. The rise of big government. There are no libertarians in a pandemic, Meghan McCain recently said. Whether that's a good thing or not is up to debate, but good or bad, there's a lot of reason to believe that it's true. Around the world, people have been embracing big government ever since COVID-19 began to spread. Socialist policies are being implemented all around the world, even in countries led by conservative and libertarian leaders. The US government is planning on spending $1 trillion fighting COVID-19, while the United Kingdom's Boris Johnson has said that there's no ceiling to how much they'll spend. Big government's making a comeback, and in some places, it's in pretty extreme ways. Number 5. Voting by mail. On April 15, with the pandemic desolating their nation, the individuals of South Korea will need to arrange outside of corners and cast their votes in the 2020 political race. It will be an enormous issue, and the nation hasn't generally had the opportunity to respond. Up until now, their answer is terrible. They will expect voters to wear veils and expendable gloves. And they're going to check everybody's temperatures previously permitting them to enter. It will be a catastrophe. We can depend on the voter turnout is horrifying. And it will be a reminder for the remainder of the world. It's particularly going to influence the United States, where primaries are now in progress and a government political decision is planned for November. Americans will need to change their democratic standards this year, and we can anticipate that those progressions should be perpetual. Number 4. The death of small businesses. A great deal of organizations are being hit hard at the present time, yet no one as hard as bars in restaurants. France, Spain, Italy, Germany and the United Kingdom are only a couple of nations that have closed down all bars and restaurants, and, in nations that haven't ordered it, scarcely any individuals are deciding to go out for drinks, for the following barely any months. At the point when individuals get a hunger to go feasting once more, and when servers begin searching for work once more, the enormous chains will in any case be there. McDonald's will endure the hardship, and that will reshape our reality. Number 3. The end of reliance on China. COVID-19 couldn't come at a more awful energy for China. They were in a merciless exchange war, and COVID-19 has aggravated things a great deal. Up to this point, the world has depended on China as its assembling center. They fabricate 20% of the world's merchandise, more than some other nation on Earth, and they have a much greater job in social insurance. 90% of America's anti-infection agents originate from China. Be that as it may, as China has gone under isolate and has battled to keep up its pace, it's become progressively clear exactly that it is so hazardous to depend on a solitary area to supply the world. Number 2. Free and universal healthcare. After the Spanish flu of 1918, nations around the globe, creator Laura Spinney says, there are just a bunch of nations that don't have all-inclusive medicinal services today, and one created country. However, this could be the minute that drives the remainder of the world into free human services. Number 1. A new political uprising. COVID-19 is hitting our well-being hard, yet it's hitting our economy considerably harder. As per investigators at J.P. Morgan Chase, there is no longer uncertainty. We currently imagine that COVID-19 stun will create a worldwide downturn. Many individuals will lose their positions. That examiner predicts that 400,000 Americans will get jobless in the following not many weeks alone. Also, before this is finished, it could be far more detestable. Another examiner accepts that before this over 7.4 million individuals in the recreation and neighborliness industry will be jobless. The poor will be hit hardest of all. While office laborers will be ready to work remotely from home, it'll generally be servers and distribution center specialists that endure this pandemic. That will be difficult. However, as Scheidel stated, equity was just at any point delivered in distress.